Hey, what's up everybody? I'm All for the Blind, and in this video I'm going to be looking at how to handle asking for swaps in solo queue, or even in duo or trio queues. Anything over that, you should be not asking the remaining people to swap. So for instance, if you're in a quad queue, you have 4 people, you should not be asking the remaining 2 people who are randoms to switch. And this is just kind of a side note that, you have 2/3 or more of the team queuing together. You guys are majority of the team. You should be really able to swap and fulfill whatever roles you need within your guys' quad. Because, I mean, it's just pragmatically speaking, usually the other 2 people who are going to be queuing with the quad aren't going to be willing to swap, or, just from personal experience and from what I've read online, usually people are pretty stubborn, and you're lucky in solo queue if you get, one person in the whole thing that is willing to swap. So especially if you're only limiting your randoms to 2, your chances are pretty low that these people are going to be wanting to swap. So you guys as a quad should be able to really lead the team composition and be fine with, really setting it up. So whatever the last 2 people do, it works out. Maybe suboptimal, but you guys at least have a decent team composition, and 4 people can do that. Now, as a trio, or I'll get into that in a second. So let's just look at the overall rule of what you should be doing when you're asking people to swap. So my first rule is you can only ever expect to have 1 tank and 1 healer. Now, this is huge. I've seen so many people lose a match from complaining right out the gate that they don't have a 2-2-2 setup or a 2-1-3 setup from the get-go, and the rest of their teammates get tilted arguing about it and so on, and you end up losing the match because everyone's tilted and angry at each other, over something stupid. Arguing the spawn is a recipe for disaster. Don't do it. The only time you should ever ask for somebody to switch is if there's not 1 tank and 1 healer, and you should only be asking somebody to switch if you have already swapped. So, and now this is something that a lot of people are probably going to disagree with me about, and I just want you to hear me out. And if at the end of the video you still disagree with me, you can leave a comment in the video section, and I'd be glad to respond to it. I highly encourage disagreement, especially if it's constructive. But this has worked for me. It's worked for a lot of friends I know that we've talked about this. So let's just get right to it. So only 1 tank and 1 healer you can only ever expect. And let's say you're a main DPS. You should have an off tank or off healer role that you're comfortable with, especially being able to solo tank. So for instance, I can play Hanzo, Tracer, Soldier, a lot of the stock DPS. But I can also swap to Roadhog as an off tank, or even Ryan. I don't like doing it, but I'll do it. So if we don't have a tank on the team, I'll go Ryan or Roadhog, and I'll say, hey guys, I'm normally a DPS. We really need a healer. Just one. Any healer will do. Not Symmetra. She's not really a healer. She's just support. But any healer will do. We just need 1. And usually people are pretty cool about it, because they're like, okay, this guy's a DPS main. He's willing to swap. I'm not going to be a dick, and I'm not going to, say, oh, no, I'm not going to swap. It usually just lends this environment of teamwork right from the get-go. And, I mean, sometimes you're not going to get people who switch, and, at that point you just have to say, okay, well, we're going to see how this goes. Don't get tilted. Don't argue about it. I mean, if people aren't going to be willing to switch, arguing with your teammates is not going to help at all. It's really the most destructive thing you can do to win a game, is to argue with your teammates right from the get-go about, stupid things like, oh, we need 2 healers, 2 tanks, Yeah, I mean, I can see complaining about not having a healer at all, but still, I mean, just complaining in general is not a good way to go. But yeah, only really expect to have 1 tank and 1 healer. Only ask for that swap, and if people aren't willing to swap, then whatever. And that's for solo queue. If you're duo queue, yeah, one of you should still be doing the tanker or the healer role. Now, this is really where you guys can lead the team. You can one of you can go 1 tank and 1 healer in your duo, so that way, even if you have 4 DPS, you have somewhat of a team composition that works. It's not going to be optimal, but you as a duo can really lead the team. Stop expecting other people to do things, and you should put it more on yourself, and you'll end up winning more games this way. Trust me. The second rule is just be kind to your teammates. Everybody wants to win, and this rule extends to the Hanzo, the Widow, the Genji mains that don't want to switch. Usually these people, I'm saying usually, don't have evil intentions. They're not wanting to throw the game. And especially if you look at their win rate, they have a 50% win rate. That's it's decent. Not there are a lot of people who are tank mains who fucking they have a 43% win rate. It's like this guy at least is able to win 50% of the games. Give him a shot. Even if it's not working with the team comp overall, just give them a shot. Try to work with them, because at the end of the day, everybody wants to win. That's the main second rule that you should really abide by, is be kind to your teammates. Everybody wants to win. The third rule is never blame a single person for a loss. Oh, man. I've had so many people say, okay, Widow, why don't you switch to a healer? Like, Widow, we need a secondary healer. Instead of looking at the soldier or the Junkrat or the Mei or whoever else is playing DPS that could swap, they always look at, the couple key characters that, are always the go-to blame. And that's why a lot of these Widow mains and Hanzo mains and everything else are usually really jaded about it, and they don't want to swap because they're always asked to. You should never blame one person for the loss or for a bad team composition, because honestly, even if you have one dickhead who's just not going to switch, he doesn't really care about the team composition overall. He's not really working with the team, but he just wants to play this character, and that's it. If he's at least trying, he's not just jumping off the map, you can't blame that person for the loss. 5 people can carry one guy who's a little bit stubborn. It really is true. And this kind of goes to this theory I have about climbing. If you're expecting to climb, that means that you think your true matchmaking rating is much higher than where you're at. And so that means you should be able to carry people. And that means that, especially if you're, doing a duo, trio, or a quad queue, yeah, you absolutely should be able to climb even with 2 dickheads on your team who just, want to go Genji Hanzo, and that's it. And they don't care that, oh, maybe we could have a soldier or whatever. Because honestly, I don't necessarily agree that those are bad picks. I'm Hanzo, man. But, overall, you should be able to carry even if people are picking nonsensical picks. Let's say the guy is a Pharah main, and the entire enemy team is freaking hit scan central. They have a Widowmaker, they have a McCree, a soldier, and they have a Roadhog who's just like bombing on the hooks. You can even win with that Pharah. Like, you really just have to think about yourself, how to improve, how to work with what you have instead of blaming other people. You will win more. I'm not saying that this is necessarily right. I'm not saying that Pharah on your team is not a dickhead, because they probably are a dickhead, but does it matter? That's what the whole crux of this argument is does it matter if that person's a dick? Why call them a dick? Who cares? You want to win. Your whole point is climbing. So you got to work with what you have. You don't have perfect teammates. If you want perfect teammates, go find a 6-stack that you like and go climb with them, and you guys can get to masters or whatever and go your happy way. If you're wanting to climb sub 6-man queue, you need to accept that your teammates are who they are, and you just got to work with them. And if you want to feel like, it really helps me out if I just say, oh, I'm going to freaking carry this, this Pharah main in spite of the fact that they have, fucking 3 hit scans on the enemy team. They're just shooting her down. I'm going to carry her. And, it works out. I end up, probably winning 20% more of the games just from having a positive outlook like that. So really, I think that wraps it up for what I wanted to talk about today, and that you should only really expect 1 tank and 1 healer when you're queuing in, particularly in solo and duo queue, because you have a bunch of randoms. But even in 3 and a quad, when you're queuing with three or 4 people, that you should really only expect 1 tank and 1 healer. And honestly, it works. You don't need more than that. People have this weird conception that you have to have a 2-2-2 or a 2-1-3. You don't need it. you really only need one tank and one healer conceptually. And I mean, honestly, I've seen weird comps like 6 DPS and they just stomp us. So like we're running a 2-2-2 and they have 6 DPS and they're just doing, because everyone's in roles that they're comfortable with and they're trying to work together. So I'm not suggesting you do that, and I definitely don't think it works. I think it works less often than it succeeds, but you know, in extremes like that. But I think the one tank, one heal is really all you need, and it works often enough that I don't think it's inferior to 2-2-2, especially if everyone works together. That's ultimately the end. The last thing that you need to worry about, and the end goal is that everybody works together. That's the ultimate part of Overwatch. If everyone's working together, any team composition will work. All right, well that's the video, guys. Leave a like or a comment or subscribe, and I'd really appreciate that. If you guys have any comments in the section, either agreement or disagreement, I'd love to have a discussion with you guys and see what you guys think. Let's see how long this video is. Oh my, okay. Well, it's a little bit longer than I thought. Anyway, have a great day, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.
My ultimate is charging.
There is nowhere to hide.
Activating. Sequence.
Marks his prey.
My ultimate is charging.
Target practice.
Heal up. You have my thanks.
Using the